There we go. Okay, I think we're live now. Let me just check. Can you guys see me? I can see the comments coming in. Um, there we go. We are live. Just checking. There we go. You guys can see me, right? Audio is a bit soft. Thank you. Let me look at that. Let me. How's the audio? Someone saying it's soft. Someone. Okay. I'll just up the microphone a little bit. It seems like the audio is fine on my side. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Apologies. I saw someone says not a very good start. I'm doing this from my house, and I'll tell you what the problem was. The software that I'm using was linked up to Facebook because the last time I did a live stream, it was on Facebook and not on YouTube. So when I went live, it wanted to go. It couldn't connect to the schedule on the YouTube stream that was scheduled for now because it tried to connect through Facebook. But all right, we managed to fix that. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I see we've got quite a few people watching already. Here we go. All right. So what we'll do, I want to say some things to get started, and then from there on, we can have some Q&A. And if there are any questions, I'd love to read your comments and see what you guys think. This is a very big moment. It has been a very, very, very busy week. And the week that follows will be just as busy. I can guarantee you that. And I will say a little bit about that without revealing too much in advance. So I see there are a lot of comments coming in. I think what we should do is I will give preference to super chats. I'll try to look at other comments as well, but sometimes the comments there are too many. I can't look at all of them. So I'll give preference to super chats. I should say right from the get-go that the channel, we're linking this channel up to the Pioneer Foundation's account, bank account. So super chats will go to the Pioneer Foundation immediately. It doesn't come to me personally, so that we can use that as part of what we intend to do and as part of what we intend to discuss. So please send me your super chats. But also, other than that, if you are watching already and you haven't become a contributor to the Pioneer Foundation, I would really like to encourage you to go and do that. You can do it while watching this video. There's a link in the description. Let me know if the link doesn't work. It should work. And you can become a contributor. And please let me know if you weren't one. Let me know in the comments if you are a contributor, but also if you are signing up during this interview, please let me know. I will be able to check also as it comes in. All right, let me get started. I want to start with a story, a short story, and I've told this. I might have mentioned this in an interview, I think in the BizNews interview with Alec Hogg, which was published about a week ago, that I really enjoyed. It was one of the most fun interviews I've had in a long time. I really enjoyed that. If you haven't seen the Alec Hogg interview on BizNews with me, and we spoke a lot about what we intend to do with Pioneer, please go and watch that. And I mentioned this story in an opinion piece as well. I wrote an opinion piece for the Vrye Weekblad. Funny enough, Vrye Weekblad is closing. For those who don't know the Vrye Weekblad, I'd love to hear your the viewers' thoughts on the Vrye Weekblad. Max de Pree's paper or publication. They are closing down, but they haven't closed down yet, and so they asked me to write something for them, which I did. All right, so everyone, I'm sure everyone watching this knows the story of Steve Jobs to an extent. Steve Jobs, as I think most people would agree, was if not the most successful or most well-known business leaders, then at least one of the most successful and most well-known business leaders, who took Apple computers from um, bankruptcy. They were just 90 days away from filing from bankruptcy in, I think, 97, to building it into the biggest company in the world. And I'm sure you guys know Steve Jobs' story. He started Apple. He eventually left Apple and he came back to Apple. But the thing I want to mention is when Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 97, there was a board meeting, and the CEO of Apple at the time was a man named Jill Amelio. And at one of these board meetings, they were talking about how to fix Apple computers, and they were on the verge of filing for bankruptcy. Many of the board members have already said, listen, let's just sell what we have and give it out to the shareholders and cash in and close it. And then Jill Amelio made a remark. He said that Apple is a ship with a hole in the bottom, and it is my job to make sure that everyone starts rowing in the right direction. Which sounds like an inspirational thing to say, but then someone raised his hand and said, well, that's good if we row in the right direction, but what about the hole? And that's why I mentioned in my opening video or launch video of the Pioneer initiative that South Africa is a ship that is sinking. It is a ship with a hole in the bottom. But first and foremost, it is a ship that is being steered in the wrong direction. But the fact that the ship is being steered in the wrong direction has become less important than the fact that the ship is sinking. And let me explain what I mean. When I say the ship is being steered in the wrong direction, I mean those in power in South Africa have a very clear idea of what they want to achieve. They want to achieve a national democratic revolution. They have very strong ideas about the combination of race, nationalism, and socialism, and all these radical policy ideas that they want to implement. And as you might have noticed, the South African government and the ruling party has become increasingly radical over the last few years, where we now have increased threats of expropriation of property without compensation. We have the Bella Act that targets schools, especially Afrikaans schools. We have threats of national health insurance. We have threats of a variety of race laws, doubling down on race laws, and so forth. And this is the direction that they want to steer the ship towards. But what has become more important than that direction is the fact that regardless of that, the ship is sinking. And what I mean by that is virtually every sphere of society in South Africa is collapsing as far as government services are concerned. And I don't need to give you, the viewer, statistics about crime or unemployment or service delivery or electricity or water or virtually anything you can think of. There's literally everything you can think of that the government's supposed to be doing is failing. Once again, as the joke goes, but it's not just a joke, except for tax collection. So even though they would like to steer the ship towards some socialist utopia, the ship is sinking. And that is why we started the Pioneer Initiative, to say that we need to rethink the future of South Africa. There are many institutions and parties and groups in South Africa who are working or fighting against bad policy ideas, working to make things better under the circumstances under which we are in. And these organizations are doing wonderful work, and we should support them and continue to support them. But I'm not aware of an institution in South Africa currently that actively works toward getting this piece of land or this country toward a better political dispensation. And when I say dispensation, I mean not getting another president, not saying that the ANC must get a different person to lead the party, which would put the country back on track. Not saying that we need another party in power. Because I think, and think about this, you watching this video, think about the party you voted for, if you voted for a party in the last election. Think about the party you voted for. I am pretty sure, pretty convinced that you were a reluctant voter, in the sense that there are a lot of things about this party that bothers you or that concerns you, but that you voted for them because you think they are the least bad. I'm pretty sure most people feel that way. And now consider if the party you voted for were to get into power in South Africa, if the leader of the party you voted for were to become the president. Think about this for a moment. Do you think the problems that concern you, the things that frustrate you about the direction that South Africa is going in, the problems that we face every day, do you think these problems will go away? Do you think having an opposition party become the ruling party would fix the underlying problems that we have in South Africa? I'm pretty sure that if you give it some thought, you would agree with me that the answer is no, which means that we need to work towards something better. And now, as I said during the Tucker Carlson interview, saying that the system isn't working or that the system isn't failing is not saying that we must return to the past. It is not saying that we want to go back to the apartheid system or something to that effect. It is saying that the previous system didn't work and the current system isn't working. And the fact is, South Africa didn't work when it was governed as one big whole by the British. It didn't work when it was governed by the Afrikaners. And it's not working now that the ANC is governing it. Now we can debate about the success and failures of the British governing South Africa or ruling South Africa, the National Party and the ANC Party, and they were all unique in their own ways, but none of these three were sustainable. And so we need to start working towards something better. And I will talk more about that in the video. If there are particular questions about that, you can ask me. But before I get to that, I want to say one or two more quick things, and then we can have a Q&A and talk about some of the questions that you guys might have. Remember, I'm keeping an eye on the comments, but if you have a question, you can ask your question, but I would encourage you to do it in the form of a super chat so that it's pinned and just to make sure that I don't miss it. All right, but I want to say a few things just to clarify where we are and how to think about the Pioneer Initiative. The first thing has to do with language and what you could say identity. And the launch of the Pioneer Initiative was in English. The video you saw, thank you, Nina, for the super chat. I'll get to that. The launch was in English, and it was deliberately so because we and I personally have received a lot of feedback after the publication of the Tucker Carlson interview and a really significant spark in interest from people who do not live in South Africa. But I should say, and I want to be clear from the get-go, that's why I mentioned it already in the announcement video, that the Pioneer Initiative will have a particular Afrikaner focus. And the reason, therefore, is because I am an Afrikaner. And I want to be very clear about this, that Afrikaans is my home language. It's the language in which I grew up. And I am a very culturally conscious person, and I have been since I was very young. And I want to say one of my biggest dreams, and I'm speaking personally now, but it's probably not one of my biggest dreams. It might be the most important thing to me, other than my faith, of course, and my family, is that I want to see the Afrikaner people be free. I want to see that the Afrikaner people have a much higher sense of autonomy or freedom than they have at the moment. And this is something that keeps me awake at night in the good sense of the word. And I want to contribute towards this goal. And the Pioneer Initiative will be involved with this, which is why much of our communications will be in Afrikaans, and I will say something about communications now. But there was a famous line by Anton Rupert. If you're from South Africa, or even not even from South Africa, you would probably know Anton Rupert, the very well-known entrepreneur, Afrikaans entrepreneur, probably the first Afrikaans billionaire, who said that you can't rest assured at night if your neighbor is hungry. And what I take from that in this context is that finding a solution for the Afrikaner people in the context of South Africa necessarily implies finding a solution for other communities as well. And so I do not think any Afrikaner solution that is built on the idea of inherent animosity between the Afrikaners and other communities in South Africa would be sustainable. And when I say animosity, I'm not referring to the typical extreme guy people you see on social media. I don't care too much for that. But we need to work towards a solution for everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean the different communities in South Africa. And I'm very encouraged by the support we have gotten, not just from Afrikaners, but from people all over the world and from different communities in South Africa. And if you don't believe me, you can look at the YouTube video of the Pioneer Foundation that's on my channel that we published on Friday, announcing the Pioneer Foundation, and just look at the comments. People from different communities, different races, ethnicities, cultures, and so forth, commenting, saying, I support this idea, we should work together. As a matter of fact, I just got a phone call from someone who said to me, listen, I'm a black South African. This is my identity. This is where I come from. But I'm very excited about what you guys are doing. And I want to help. I want to become involved. And I want to use the resources at my disposal to help you. So I want to be very clear about that. And then speaking about language, to me, it's almost a matter of principle to communicate in Afrikaans for the reasons I mentioned. But it's also important to communicate in English, which is what I am doing now. And so I've had some questions about this channel and why we are speaking in English. And we have to consider, firstly, that we want to reach an international audience and we want to get international support. And also it would disrupt or confuse the YouTube algorithm if I were to use different languages on one channel. So what I'm doing, broadly speaking now, is to communicate in Afrikaans on Facebook and English on YouTube. I am considering starting an additional YouTube channel to publish Afrikaans content on. All right, that is as far as language is concerned. Let me answer Nina's question, and then I'll get to. I see there are some others questions coming in. Thank you, Pierre. Nina's question. I have one or two more things to say, but I'll answer this first. Ernst, living in a racially conscious society, how do you convince other peoples in South Africa this is not a new apartheid project? Is this only about self-preservation? Well, thank you, Nina. Thank you very much for that. And that is a very important question, and it is a question that I've been getting quite a lot. And a lot of people are really malicious in this. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are malicious on X, on social media, claiming that, oh, you are criticizing the South African government, or you are calling for some form of autonomy or self-determination, which means that, we can see what you guys are doing. You want the apartheid system back. Now, that's the most ludicrous argument you can conceive, because it's a false dichotomy. It assumes that you can only have what we have now or apartheid. There's nothing else, which obviously is bizarre and ridiculous. So it says a lot about the person making the accusation. If they think not being satisfied with what we have in South Africa implies that you want apartheid. I think there are very, very, very few people in this country who actually think that a return to apartheid is a good idea. And it certainly is not the goal of the Pioneer Initiative. The goal is to get more autonomy, more self-governance or self-determination for the communities of South Africa. That could be local communities, it could be cultural communities, it could take different forms. We have some certainty about the direction we're heading in. We don't have exact certainty about the very, very precise end point, which I think is a good thing for now, because we need to consider different options at our disposal, and we need to look at different scenarios. And self-governance could take many forms. It could take the form of including minority rights in the South African Constitution, because believe it or not, there aren't. The South African Constitution only has individual rights. I don't, however, think that would be sufficient. It could take the form of moving toward a federation where the provinces in South Africa operate more like states, like the US system with governors. It could mean some kind of a form of territorial autonomy, meaning that communities that inhabit a particular community or a particular territory have a degree of autonomy over that territory. It could be that. It could be cultural autonomy, communities living in South Africa who are spread out across the country having a higher degree of autonomy over their own affairs, like their own schools, their own cultural affairs, and so forth. it could mean secession. And I know that's the big curse word, or it's almost heresy to talk about secession. But I seriously think that this is something that we need to study. We need to look into. Why? Because a lot of people are talking about it. And what we need to do with all of these examples I mentioned is get the best experts we can possibly get to do proper research on this, on all of these and others. There are many other forms of autonomy or self-governance that we can look at. To look at these options and take them one by one and say, where has this happened in the world? Let's look at all the examples. Who have attempted to do this but has failed? Who have attempted to do this and has succeeded? And what lessons can we learn from this? And how do we apply this to our situation? Is this practical? Is it feasible? If we were to go down this path, what do we need to do to achieve this? So there's a lot of work that we need to do. I want to say something about where we are now with the Pioneer Foundation. You would see that, by the way, I haven't really promoted the Pioneer Foundation's Facebook page. There is a Facebook page. You can look it up. You can go and follow that. I see we've had quite a lot of interest in the X profile already. There's also a YouTube channel, so you can go and follow the social media so long. If someone would be as kind as maybe copying the links and putting them in the chats, I would really appreciate that. So the logo is just a P. It's just a blue background with a white P on, and the P obviously for Pioneer. And the reason why is that would not be the logo, but we wanted to launch the initiative to get more people on board so that we can have a somewhat democratic process, democratic in the good sense of the word. In other words, get people on board to plan this initiative, to work with our contributors, to organize internal conferences, meetings, discussion groups, liaising through newsletters, reading your emails, your inputs, and then working towards finalizing this structure. Let me just check. It seems as if the camera went off. Let me just fix that. Ah, there we go. We are back. Sorry about that. And so we plan on launching a more final version of the Pioneer Initiative maybe in a few months. And we want to really speak with the people who have already signed up and the people who are bound to sign up in the next few weeks to get your input on what this initiative should look like. We're working on what you might call a charter, a list of, we have a vision statement already that's on the website. We have some form of a mission statement. So the vision statement is what do we want to achieve? What do we see as the end goal? And the mission statement is how do we get there? And we're working on that, and we really want your input in that. So we're going to, if you are a contributor or if you've signed up at least to the newsletter, we're going to liaise with you on that. For some reason, the camera keeps going off. Let me fix that. Let me just make sure. Can you guys see me? Let me just fix the camera. I think it's going back on. There we go. Sorry about that. Again, I'm doing this from my house. So, all right, that's where we are. We're working toward all of that. Okay, before I talk further, let me get to some of the super chats because there are quite a few. I hope I didn't miss any. Reeve, thank you for what you are doing. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. 350 Rand super chat. Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. As I said, if you've just tuned in, super chats coming in doesn't go to me. It goes to the Pioneer Initiative. So super chats are very welcome. And also in the link to this video, or in the description, there's a link to the Pioneer Initiative website. I really want to encourage you to become a contributor if you haven't signed up yet. And let me know in the comments if you are one already or if you've just signed up during this interview or upon watching this. If you're not watching it live, then let me know in the chats, which wouldn't then be the live stream. Hannes, I think Hannes just gave a super chat, 39 Rand. Thank you very much. Neanderthal, how do we eradicate crime in South Africa? Well, well, I think I can be somewhat deliberate and say we can't. I honestly don't think there is a policy that the government could implement that would eradicate crime, because crime is obviously a complicated phenomenon, a complex phenomenon, and it's the result of a variety of factors. And many of these factors are the same reasons why I keep saying the system in South Africa is not sustainable. I wonder why this. Ah, there we go. We're back. I actually think. Let me know if from my screen it looks as if the camera is going off and then on again. I think actually what's happening is when someone signs up, the camera goes off and on again. So we'll fix that next time we speak. All right. I think the problem is just that the reasons why South Africa has such a significant crime problem is part of the reasons why the political system is not functional. And these reasons include things like culture, it includes things like demographics, it includes things like, economic factors, which is more a symptom of the problem than the problem itself. But it is very concerning. What I do think is that as communities, we can do a lot to eradicate crime. In other words, communities coming together to do something about the crime problem, to be well organized in terms of how we respond to crime, but that still is reactive, largely reactive. The single most important proactive thing that we could do in terms of crime is to ensure that we have a culture in which crime is regarded as unacceptable and in which crime doesn't pay. Pierre Boere hier, 14 Rand, thank you very much. Pierre Bosch, what's the plan, Arons? Where should we go? Thanks for doing everything you are doing. Okay, Pierre. So the plan is to develop a plan. And I see someone asked on X, how can you announce that people should join you and then that you should support you and then that you would develop a plan once people join you? And there's a very obvious reason for that. We have a very clear idea of where we should go, and we have a very clear idea already of what the broad components of the solution is. Where we should go is toward a better, more sustainable political dispensation in South Africa. The most important building blocks of that solution is some form of decentralization. In other words, a system in which the president and the ruling party has significantly less power. Even if they wanted to implement destructive policy ideas, they shouldn't be able to do so, because they shouldn't have the power to implement such ideas. Or they should have significantly less power. That's the one aspect. The other aspect is, as I mentioned, self-governance, communities, and that could be local communities, it could be cultural communities, it could be different types of communities, should have much more authority over their own affairs. And we need to get, as I mentioned earlier, we need to get the best people we can possibly get to help us prepare roadmaps for the different ways in which this could play out. But also, there are some really bad case scenarios. I mentioned in the launch video, there's a political void or a leadership void being created, and that void can be filled by bad actors. And we need to look at, if the political system changes, which I believe is inevitable, we just don't know when it's going to happen, it could become much worse. And what would a worse system look like? And then how do we prepare for that? But also, what can we do to ensure that that doesn't happen? Hannes, wat onderskei die van wat AfriForum doen? Dankie Hannes, I'll answer in English. So this is a much more specific focus than AfriForum. The Pioneer Initiative, I do not foresee it becoming involved with court cases. I do not foresee it becoming involved with organizing local communities. It is very much focused on what you might call macro political solutions, if that makes sense. If there are more specific questions about that, please let me know. Reef, thank you for what you're doing. I think I might have read that one already. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Wow, there are quite a few coming in. Johan Grabe, R200. Baie dankie, Johan. Will the finances of Pioneer Initiative be public information like Elon Musk is doing with Doge in the USA? Yes, that is the plan. We want to be as accountable and transparent as we can possibly be. But I have to ask you to be patient because the Pioneer Initiative, as of Friday, was me. And in other words, it's me doing it full time with some people helping me, on a some people, helping me to get this up and running. What we need to get to is I do not foresee the Pioneer Initiative appointing a whole lot of people. I do not foresee us having a big staff component. I would much rather have a bigger budget to use to get researchers to do work, to publish that, to get a better studio so that we can communicate more effectively, to be able to speak at international conferences, to raise awareness about what we are doing and so forth. And we need to get the nuts and bolts of this Pioneer Initiative up and running in the next month. I want to say the next week, but it's not going to be possible in the next week because I have something very big coming up the next week, and please remind me to get to that. And yes, that's the plan. To go back from the get-go, from the moment we started, so that we are as transparent as we can possibly be about our finances. Ian, 35 Rand, thank you very much. A lot of people are just giving super chats just to support, so thank you. I appreciate that. Lowbrow Takati, hi Mr. Roots. A large issue with the NPO think tank sphere is their funding model. They are far too dependent on large donors. Is the Pioneer Initiative focused on smaller donors in quantity? Yes, that is very true. Well, as I'm speaking to you now, we only have small donors, but we would certainly welcome large donors. I have spoken to some people who have expressed interest, actually who have contacted me saying, listen, can we help you get this up and running? The wonderful thing about large donors is it's a big sum of money that comes in that you can use for a particular project. You can use a large donation to set up a studio, for example, or buy new equipment or something like that. But it becomes tricky and risky if the donor starts prescribing to you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And this is something that we will be very cautious of, even though we would welcome large donations. If someone watching would like to make a large donation, please do. But we will not. We are very clear on what we want to achieve, and it would not be possible for donors to fund this initiative into a direction of stepping away from what we want to achieve, because we will not allow that. Willem Steenkamp, 140 Rand. How do you plan to convince Parliament and party leaderships to buy into the self-governance initiative and allow it to happen? Will you use Arania as an example of how it could work? Thank you and God bless. Thank you. That's a very good and a very important question. And we also spoke about this a bit on the Alec Hogg interview, the business interview that I mentioned earlier. I don't think, let me answer with a short anecdote before I answer the question. Some of you might remember in 2018, in September, I spoke in Parliament in South Africa about expropriation without compensation. And I remember the day before speaking in Parliament, someone called me who's a very senior journalist. And this person gave me some advice, just said, well, are you speaking tomorrow? And the person sort of encouraged me to be as convincing as I could possibly be. And this person said to me, well, remember what your goal is. Your goal is to convince them of your position. And I stopped them and I said, if my goal is to convince them, what do you think the words are that I could say in Parliament that would convince Floyd Shivambu that they should stop this expropriation without compensation idea? What are the words that a person could say that would convince the ANC that socialism is not the answer? I don't think there are such words. I don't think they exist. So I think, and that's why I've sometimes said that the battle of ideas is overrated. The battle of ideas is obviously very important. Don't think it's not important, but you can keep winning the argument while keep losing the fight or the battle or whatever it is you want to achieve. Because those in power are not interested in good arguments. And so we need to have good arguments. We need to have the best arguments. Also, because good arguments might not be able to convince the government, but it certainly helps to convince supporters abroad and so forth. And so I don't think the path towards decentralization lies through convincing the ANC that it's a good idea. I think it lies towards using other methods of achieving this. And that is something that we need to look into. Susan Economarcus, 100 Rand, 99 Rand. Thank you very much for that. Dead Johnny was him, 70 Rand. Trump should be given the aid of Trump should have given the aid to the minority groups of South Africa, not the ANC. Oh, I think the point is that US funding should be redirected as opposed to going to the ANC. Now, yes, but it's quite clear that the South African or the American government is taking a very hard line on stopping foreign funding because they have an America First policy. And I think, and again, let me know in the comments if you disagree, but I think most of us, certainly including myself, would agree that it's good for America to have an America First approach. America should put American interest first. And it's quite bizarre to listen to the extent to which America is funding projects all over the world, the stuff that's coming out with Doge over the last few weeks. And if I was an American, I would support the idea that such funding has to stop. And as a non-American, I think it's a sensible thing for America to do. It would be good for us if funding is redirected from initiatives that go toward either the ruling party or the government, or projects that are ideologically aligned to projects that are focused on working with minority communities. I'm pretty sure the American government still intends to say and do more about South Africa, and we need to be part of that conversation. And we need to be involved with that. And I think what they have in mind is not simply redirecting funding, but other more tangible ways of applying pressure. And this is also something that we intend to focus on with the Pioneer Initiative. Trevor de Bisson, 140 Rand. What makes the Pioneer Foundation different to AfriForum and Solidarity? I think I have answered that in an earlier question. Maybe you signed in a bit later. The Pioneer Initiative is not in opposition to the Solidarity movement. It has good relations with them. It's not a repetition of what is currently being done. It is a new initiative with a different focus. I mentioned earlier some of the things, for example, that AfriForum are involved with as core activities that would not be activities of the Pioneer Initiative. And so I'm still a member of AfriForum and of Solidarity, and I would encourage you to be one or continue to be one if you are one. If you're not one, you should sign up. But this is a different focus. The focus here is much more on macro political change, you could say, or moving towards a better political dispensation for South Africa. Thank you. I see there are many comments coming in. I can't read everyone. It's too fast to read. But let me say this. I want to close by 6 o'clock, and it's almost 6, so I want to close in a few minutes. So if there are some final questions, send them in as super chats. But also, once again, if you haven't signed up as a contributor, click on the link in the description and do so. And as I said in the announcement video, if you haven't seen it, if you are uncertain, I would encourage you to sign up just for 1 year. And because I know that within this year, you will see the fruits that will be reaped from this. I'm already convinced of that, but I cannot do it alone. And we need support. We need support to get this up and running. So I really want to encourage you to do that. Some of what we want to do or need to do with the support that we're getting from you is work towards a launch, more formal final launch of the Pioneer Initiative with a logo and a more comprehensive plan of action, a more comprehensive charter, you could say. Thank you, Adrian, for the euro. We need to do that. We need to start organizing conferences. And with conferences, I mean internal conferences. In other words, us getting together and talking about and planning this. What do we need to go to do? Where do we need to go? Getting input and having an interactive process towards this. But also external conferences to start getting some of the best people we can possibly get to start doing research on these issues, to start publishing papers on these issues, to arrange conferences for them to speak publicly about these issues, to create a whole lot of media and social media and communications content about these issues, so that we can become much more actively involved with the political discussion or the public debate. So we need to have conferences like that as well, publish papers, talk about it, get on interviews, speak with international podcasters and so forth. We need to do that. We need to appoint people. And I say appoint people with a lot of caution because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't foresee this initiative having a whole bunch of people working for it. Like Malema says, I can't predict the future, but that certainly is not the plan. I would much rather have a small team with who are the best people that we could possibly get, and to have a budget that is sufficient to do some of these things that I'm talking about now. But we do need people, because currently it's a one-man show, and hopefully it won't be a one-man show for long. But we need people to help with video editing, to help. We need enough money to get to be able to pay editors, people who are able to help us with filming of podcasts, of creating content. I also think we should work on creating much more documentary films, because we know, I think you watching this would know the value of documentaries. We need to create documentaries about these topics. Documentaries not just aimed at us or the people in South Africa, but international documentaries about to lift up a mirror and shed a light on what is happening in South Africa with significant inside information, and get this documentary or these documentaries to the right people. I'm very excited about the prospect of making documentaries again. So that's one more thing that we need to do. We need to get podcasting facilities. We need to have proper equipment to do that. We need supporting software. We need systems to make sure everything's up and running. And people are saying next week. Is this about my earlier comment? What happens next week? Okay, I'm about to say. And this links to my earlier comment about this coming week. We need to have resources to be able to travel in short notice. So I cannot say exactly what's going to happen in this week, but I can say to you that something very big is going to happen this week. I have to book flight tickets tonight or tomorrow, otherwise it would be too late. There's a very big opportunity to get our message out to an international audience. I'm not sure if it's bigger or almost as big as speaking on Tucker Carlson, but it certainly is a very big opportunity. Not just one. And so I need to get on a plane quite quickly. And I'm going to do that, I can assure you. And we already have some things in the books that are scheduled for this coming week. And there's a very important reason why I'm not saying exactly what it is, because I have had that experience in the past of people, and I actually know who it was. It was people in the media in South Africa deliberately working to derail things that we already have on the books, calling people in America, trying to prevent certain things from happening. So if I were to tell you now, I'm going to speak with this person, I am convinced that there would be people who would try to prevent that from happening. And so what I can say to you is that I'm pretty sure that something is happening this week. It might not be published this week, but you will see the result. You will at least know what it is, probably Friday. So you have heard it for the first time here. You should watch. I think you'll probably see it on my social media 1st on Friday. It might be Saturday morning. I'm going to be in a different time zone, but I need to get there urgently. And it's not just one thing, it's about 3 or 4 big things in the next 2 weeks. And so, thank you. I see a lot of people are saying Joe Rogan. As I said on Facebook, I cannot confirm nor deny. If it's true, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't announce that. So I'm not going to say, if you say Joe Rogan or if you give other names, I'm not going to say, yes, I'm speaking with that person. But we do have a very big opportunity. And I'm really, really grateful for the support. And I really think that we have started this thing with a massive bang. Thank you for those who have signed up during this this past 2 days, I think, and also for those who have signed up while we were speaking. I'm quite excited about what lies ahead. There's a lot more that I want to say, but I don't want to say everything in one video. So keep following this channel and other channels, the Pioneer Initiatives channels. We'll get the podcast up and running again. We didn't publish this week. Thank you, Yaku Swanepoel, for the super chat. We didn't publish this week because we had the launch this week. We'll get the podcast up and running again. We have people who have already agreed to allow us to use their studio facilities, so we'll be up and running again. So the last thing I would like to say, thank you for all the comments. I see there's a lot of comments coming in. People being very positive. I actually haven't seen any negative remarks. There might be some, I'm sure there are, but I haven't seen keeping my eye on the comments. It's just rolling in. I haven't seen a single negative remark, which is remarkable. And it's also, you'll see negative remarks on X, but it's also very, very assuring to see the very positive reaction to the YouTube video with the announcement. And I encourage you to go and have a look. I think people understand that this is not some idea to go back to the past. People know we're looking forward. And so I'm really not concerned about the accusations we're getting from some people on X and some people in the media. It really, because they don't represent the sentiments on ground level. All right, so final words. If you haven't signed up as a contributor, please do. It really helps us to get this initiative up and running. And other than that, if you are on X, go and follow @Pioneer on X. Will you publish first on X or Facebook? I will publish first on X, on my X account. So click the bell button, and you'll see it probably maybe Saturday morning. Again, if it works out, we might have a situation where something moves, where scheduling influences where we are. Maybe it happens the week after. A lot could happen, but preliminary, that's the plan. And if you're on Facebook, go look up the Pioneer Initiative on Facebook. I will share it now on my Facebook page, the link. So please go and like that. Follow it on Facebook. There is a Pioneer Foundation YouTube account with only one video on it at the moment, and that's the announcement video. Go and subscribe there. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do that. And once again, thank you. I have to say, I think, let me end with this. I've been ending now for 10 minutes. I mentioned this on Facebook. There's that famous story of Hernan Cortez, the conqueror, I guess you could say, when he went to Mexico. And the story is that he arrived with his ships, and legend has it that he burned his ships upon arrival. Technically, or actually what he did was he dismantled his ships. He took them apart. And this has been a recurring theme in history, also in antiquity, of people arriving at a particular place and then burning down their ships. And because a lot of people have actually done that. Why? Because if you burn down your ship, you do not have the ability to turn back. And now we must not confuse burning your ship with burning your bridges, because I don't think that I burned any bridges. I did not resign from the solidarity movement because there was some fight, or I've seen some conspiracies online and people making videos analyzing what happened without having a clue what actually happened. And we're still friends, and I'm still a member, and I want to encourage you to remain a member. And I intend to keep supporting the solidarity movement and AfriForum. not being an employee doesn't mean that you're not a member. But in a certain sense, I did burn my ships. And what I mean by that is I took a leap of faith with the announcement of this initiative on Friday. Um, in resigning from what I have been doing for 20 years to do this. And it was, as I said in the announcement, it's all or nothing. I went all in, and I am going all in on this. And I was very grateful to see the extent to which support has been rolling in since Friday. But not just the extent to which support has been rolling in, but the extent to which people from all over, also outside of South Africa, but different communities in South Africa, have reached out to me saying, thank you for this. This is a good idea. We need to do this. Because it really is a leap forward in terms of the political situation in South Africa. And I'm very excited about what lies ahead. All right. I have been closing now for 10 minutes. So thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone watching. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the support. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for supporting on social media. And thank you in advance for becoming involved and for attending events that we intend to organize in the next few months.